You've probably seen this making the rounds online, right? These claims that the devastating wildfires we're seeing aren't natural disasters at all, but are actually being started by lasers from the sky. I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie, but this theory is spreading like, well, wildfire. Okay, so let's get into it. So that's the big question we're tackling. Is there any truth to this idea that these massive infernos are being deliberately set by some kind of futuristic technology? We're going to break down the claims, look at the so-called evidence, and then see what the actual official investigations have to say. So the core of the theory goes something like this. What we're seeing are not normal fires. Nope. Instead, the claim is that powerful, incredibly precise, directed energy weapons, think government lasers, high-tech death rays, are being used to intentionally start these fires, targeting very specific homes and neighborhoods. And the people who believe this, they point to what they say is proof. You've probably seen the videos I'm talking about, these weird green or blue beams of light streaking through a smoky sky, or pictures of houses with blue roofs that are just mysteriously untouched, or a single green tree standing tall in a landscape that's been completely scorched. All of it fuels this idea of a precise, almost surgical attack. All right, so let's actually start decoding some of this evidence. It's really easy to get caught up in the shocking clips and the fear, I get it, but our goal here is to follow the facts, not the fear, and just see where they actually lead us. And this is where you see two totally different stories emerge. On one hand, you've got the wild, sensational theory of targeted laser strikes and sabotage from space. And on the other hand, you have the reality that investigators keep finding on the ground. Much more boring stuff like frayed power lines, aging infrastructure, and just insane wind conditions. One is a sci-fi thriller, the other is a much more mundane, but much more real problem. Let's tackle one of the biggest pieces of evidence first. This idea that blue things, blue cars, blue roofs, even blue patio umbrellas, are somehow being spared by the flames. The theory is that the lasers are programmed to just avoid the color blue. But is that what's really going on? Well, the scientific reality is a little less conspiratorial and a lot more about, well, basic physics. It's true that different colors reflect heat differently, but what's way, way more important is what the object is made of. A metal roof painted blue is just way less flammable than an asphalt shingle roof, no matter what color it is. Material science, it turns out, is a much better predictor of what burns than a color palette. Okay, but what about those trees? We've all seen those haunting photos of a single green tree standing perfectly fine in a field of total ash. Surely that has to be evidence of precise targeting, right? The fire just magically stopped? Actually, this is classic wildfire behavior. Fires are just incredibly unpredictable. They're driven by wild, shifting winds that can literally cause the flames to leapfrog over entire areas, leaving these weird, untouched patches. And as for that one tree, it might have just had a higher moisture content than the super dry brush all around it. It's an example of chaos, not control. And this is a perfect example of how visual proof can get twisted online. Let's take those viral videos from the Southern California fires. That bright flash in the sky that people called an energy beam, that was later identified as a power transformer exploding, which happens all the time in huge fires. That streaking green light, often it's just a lens flare on the camera. These are just unrelated images that get miscaptioned to fit a scary story. So here's the really crucial point. When teams of actual experts investigate these fires for months, digging through all the evidence on the ground, their conclusions look very, very different from the theories you see online. They consistently find much more down-to-earth culprits. And in case after case, the documented causes are things like this. For example, the official investigation into the horrific Maui fires traced the ignition back to downed electrical equipment. Other fires get started by frayed power lines, a faulty power grid, or sometimes just extreme winds reigniting an old ember. Now, these are really serious problems, don't get me wrong, but they aren't secret space weapons. Which brings us to our next really big question. If the evidence for lasers just doesn't hold up, why do so many people find the theories so believable? What is it that makes these stories so incredibly compelling? I mean, it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? The evidence points in one direction, but belief just rushes off in the other. So why do these theories spread so fast and so far, often way faster than the actual facts from investigators? The answer, it turns out, lies in our own psychology. As human beings, we are fundamentally wired for stories. A dramatic story with heroes, villains, and a secret plot is just infinitely more interesting to our brains than a complicated technical report about grid maintenance and humidity levels. And you can see a clear pattern emerge every time. It starts with a big, scary, chaotic event. In the middle of that chaos, our brains just desperately search for a simple explanation to make sense of it all. A conspiracy theory offers that on a silver platter. You get a clear villain, a clear motive, and that simple dramatic story will always travel faster online than the complicated, messy truth. Ultimately, I think it's about the appeal of a bigger story. The idea of hidden powers and some grand cosmic explanation can feel more significant, more meaningful than the boring reality of faulty equipment or bad weather. It makes a tragedy feel like it's part of something epic, rather than just a tragic, preventable accident. But this isn't just a harmless thought experiment. We have to talk about the real-world damage that happens when these online myths spill over into the offline world, especially during a crisis. It is so crucial to understand that spreading this kind of misinformation during an active disaster isn't just a harmless hobby. It has real, tangible, negative consequences for the people on the ground and for the first responders who are trying to help them. And here's exactly why it matters so much. It diverts public attention away from life-saving advice, like official evacuation orders. It forces emergency services to spend precious time and resources debunking rumors instead of coordinating their response. And maybe worst of all, it erodes public trust in the very officials who are trying to keep people safe, which can literally delay evacuations and get in the way of aid efforts. So what's the takeaway here? Well, in moments of chaos, your best defense, your shield really, is just accurate, timely information. Tuning out all the noise and focusing on the official guidance from emergency services and scientific experts is the most powerful tool you have to protect yourself and your community. Here's a good line to keep in your back pocket. When you see this level of destruction, the cause is almost always more about human error, aging infrastructure, and climate change than it is about some kind of extraterrestrial sabotage. The real cause is usually much closer to home. So the next time you see a sensational claim blowing up your feed in the middle of a breaking news event, just take a moment. Just pause, take a breath, and really consider the source and the evidence before you even think about sharing it. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world that so often feels chaotic and confusing, we are constantly faced with a choice: a compelling, simple story or a more complex, harder truth. The real question is, which one do we choose to build our understanding of the world on?